Hello, bipolar friends. Before you make another attempt at reinventing yourself, we need to talk. So step away from the moving boxes, the blue hair dye, and that $15,000 certificate program you're about to sign up for, and let me explain why so many of us keep chasing fresh starts. I'm Patty, the girl with blue energy. I have ADHD and bipolar disorder. Today I'm talking about what I call the Bipolar Reinvention Cycle. It's something a lot of us struggle with without even realizing it. Once I understood what was driving this cycle, I finally understood why I was never happy with myself and why I was constantly trying to reinvent myself. Let's start by talking about why we all love fresh starts, not just bipolar people. It's why New Year's resolutions are so popular, birthdays are a way to become a new person, and Mondays are everyone's go-to day for starting over. Behavioral scientists call these moments temporal landmarks. They're like bookmarks in our lives, separating one chapter from the next. They create a psychological distance from our old self and give us a renewed sense of motivation. Even though they're just another day on the calendar, psychologically, they feel completely different. And the difference is, these days recharge us. The old me couldn't stick with a workout routine, but the new me, she's totally different. She has a new attitude and a new plan, and this version of me, she can do this. A fresh start can be healthy, but when you have bipolar disorder, fresh starts can become a cycle. One of the reasons we get so obsessed with fresh starts is because of a system in our brain called the Behavioral Activation System, or BAS. The Behavioral Activation System is what motivates us to take an action or go after a reward. People with bipolar disorder tend to have a more reactive BAS. This is also called reward hypersensitivity. It just means our brains respond more strongly to rewards and exciting goals. We also have another system called the Behavioral Inhibition System. This part of our brain tells us, hey, wait a minute, not so fast, maybe you should stop and think about this. But because our reward sensitivity is so high, we don't always pay attention to that message before we just dive right in. During hypomania or mania, our BAS is even more reactive, which means we have an even stronger urge to pursue our goals. Here's where it gets complicated. Even if we weren't manic to begin with, chasing a reward can trigger mania. And all of this is part of why fresh starts are so exciting to us. We don't need a special day. We just need a new idea for reinventing ourselves. Dopamine plays a role in why we love fresh starts. It's part of how our reward system works. Most people think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but that's not exactly how it works. Dopamine is actually more of an anticipation chemical. What I mean by that is it's not actually released when you receive a reward. It's released when you want a reward. It helps to create a desire for something. This is why dopamine can make us drawn to chasing new goals, because it gives us a sense of anticipation and hope. It's part of what fuels the reinvention cycle. We anticipate the reward so much and feel like this time it will finally make us happy. We also have issues with our identity and self-worth. It can feel like we have several different versions of ourselves. Part of that is simply because we have bipolar disorder. But our identity and self-worth are also tied to our accomplishments. We tend to be more ambitious and are also incredibly hard on ourselves. When most people reach a milestone, they celebrate their progress. We usually don't. We tend to dismiss the small wins and measure ourselves based on whether or not we actually achieved the entire goal. Our self-worth can be crushed if we don't achieve our goal, but if we do, we often need an even bigger one to feel happy with ourselves again. This is where the reinvention cycle begins. We long for the next new version of ourselves. This time we will get to that place we keep trying to get to, this imaginary place where we're finally happy. Sometimes this destination looks like a new opportunity or a new vision of who we want to become. Other times it's a place where we can leave our mistakes, failures, and bad memories behind. we use the reinvention cycle to transform us into someone different than we were before. It can be a way to escape the shame of a manic episode, or it can be a way to create a version of ourselves that we'll finally like. So we start the cycle over and convince ourselves that this time we'll get it right. Here's the problem with all this. Humans experience something called hedonic adaptation, which basically means that we get used to things over time. Once the excitement fades, we return to our normal baseline. It's why buying a house or moving to a new location can feel so exciting at first. But eventually that excitement ends and life goes back to normal. The same thing happens when we reinvent ourselves. The new version of us eventually stops feeling new and we go back to having the same feelings we had before. We also tend to repeat the same patterns. So we can end up feeling like we're right back where we started, looking for another way to feel hopeful and excited again. There are two big things that drive the reinvention cycle. One is the way we respond to goals, and the other is how we tie our self-worth to achieving those goals. One small study looked specifically at this, and it was called the Goals Program. It was developed to help people with bipolar disorder reduce mania. Participants work with a therapist on strategies to better manage their goals and ways to prevent triggering mania. These were the 4 areas they worked on. The first one was their emotional reactions to success. So the therapist worked with them to develop strategies to stay calm, whether they had a success or a challenge. High goal setting. A therapist helped the participant to evaluate whether a goal was realistic and the costs of achieving it. They also worked on strategies for dealing with their feelings if they were unsuccessful. And the therapist encouraged them to set smaller, more achievable goals instead of one big goal. The third area was recognizing their confidence. So the participants were taught to pay attention to their confidence and recognize when their confidence was tied to a mood episode or when they were becoming overconfident, because changes in confidence can be a sign that you're entering into a manic episode. The final area was goal pacing. The participants were taught how to break their goals into smaller steps, but they were also taught to protect their sleep and avoid the urge to push themselves too hard because this could trigger mania. So now for the hard part. How do you break the reinvention cycle without losing yourself? Our self-worth is often so closely tied to our achievements that we don't want to give that up. And I don't want you to. Just because you have bipolar disorder doesn't mean you can't be ambitious or that every fresh start is a bad idea. Sometimes moving, changing careers, or setting a big goal for yourself is the right decision. The key is learning how to differentiate a thought-out decision from one being driven by mania or the reinvention cycle. So the first step to breaking the reinvention cycle is to learn as much as you can about bipolar disorder and your own unique patterns. Pay attention to any early warning signs of mania and be aware that your confidence and judgment can be affected by a mood episode. If you can, work with a therapist. They can help you evaluate major goals and life decisions more effectively. If you don't have a therapist, talk things through with someone you trust. Here are a few questions you can ask yourself before you make a big decision. How long have you been interested in this idea, and did it come to you during a mood change? Think carefully about what's going on in your life right now. If you're not sleeping, have more energy and confidence, it's a good idea to slow things down and talk it over with someone. Is your goal or big decision realistic? I will never try to kill someone's ideas or ambition. We are ambitious people. But when you have bipolar disorder, you need to use caution. One thing I do when I set a goal is I try to give myself 3 times as much time as I think I need. This helps me to pace myself. Another question, have I talked to anyone about this? If you're afraid to tell anyone about your goal or plan, this could be an indicator that your idea is risky. Sometimes we don't want to be told not to do something, so we don't talk to anyone about it. But you really should find someone to talk to. Don't just talk about the idea. Talk about the steps you'll take and how it could affect your emotional stability. Another perspective can help you be more objective and see potential risks you might not be able to see. Plus, having a support system can help you to achieve your goals. How's your sleep? If you're going after a big goal, make sure your sleep is protected. This means setting a time limit on your work and going to bed, even if you're just lying there resting. It also means you should talk to your doctor if your sleep is getting disrupted. You might need a medication adjustment or a plan to help you maintain your sleep. Take it slow. When I want to make a big change, I sleep on it for a while instead of just acting on it. I also intentionally slow down the pace. So instead of just quitting a job, I make a plan first. Instead of starting a new business, I take on one small project and see how I feel. This helps me not to push myself into a manic episode and also to make better decisions. Take a minute to love yourself exactly the way you are. Bipolar disorder can affect so many aspects of our lives. It can make us question which version of ourselves we really are. Are we the manic version, the depressed version, the successful version, or the failure? Take a minute to remember who you really are without the achievements or the failures. Before you try to reinvent yourself with a new goal, a new hair color, or a new life, remember you're still the same person underneath it all. You don't need to reinvent yourself to have hope, goals, and aspirations for something better. I hope you liked this video. I try to create helpful and educational mental health videos. If you liked it, please support my channel by clicking the like button, leaving me a comment, or of course subscribe. I'll have another video out for you guys real soon.